I want to show you how you can take these tiny pieces of scrap wood and turn them into so many amazing things. In today's video, I have 7 scrap wood ideas for you. Let's get started. I absolutely love little wood totes, but one of the things that I struggle with is my fear of power tools. I have a bunch of them and I have used them, but I kind of am very reluctant to use them on a regular basis. My husband definitely helps me out, but I want to show you today how you can find pieces of scrap wood. It does take a little bit of digging, but when you find some that are the right size already, there are ways that you can use other things in your stash to create little bins or totes just like this. This is 3 pieces of scrap wood that I had in my stash, and then 2 little breadboards that I got off of Amazon. And even though the base is going to be wider than what the piece would need, I'm going to show you how you can still create something beautiful and unique without having to cut anything down or use any fancy power tools. I'm going to start by gluing with some wood glue these 2 breadboards to the side to create the 2 sides of my little wood tote. I will use that same wood glue to glue these 4 sides to the base of what will be a box. As you can see, there is about maybe an inch of the base that sticks out in the front. I kept the back very flush and I wanted that little edge in the front to be there. I have an idea for it. So for right now, we're going to leave it like this and clamp it and then set it aside to dry overnight. I used a brad nailer to brad nail those pieces together, and now I'm going to be using some Victorian Lace, which is a fusion all-in-one paint, and painting the entire piece in this color inside and out. I typically love using color, but I also know that white is one of the colors that sells the best, at least for me. So I am trying to go more neutral with some of my projects this spring. I have these 2 tiny castings from the Primitive Mold by IOD, and I'm going to be using them to cover the holes that are on those breadboards that are on the sides of my box. I originally thought about using a spindle across the top and then having screws go through those holes, but I thought that the spindle was going to be too small and I was worried about, anything cracking or breaking. So instead, I brad nailed the spindle above where those holes are, and I needed something to cover them on the outside. And that's what these 2 little castings are going to do. As you can see, I added some transfers. This is from the redesign with Prima. I believe it was this year's spring release. And then I found this little bunny in my stash that I thought would sit perfectly right in front. For our next project today, I'm going to show you how you can make some wall pockets that can be used not only for greenery, but also to hold mail, to hold pencils or pens. I'm going to start by taking these 2 pieces of reclaimed wood and adhering them together to make it a little bit thicker. I originally was going to make this into a sign, but then my husband gave me a pair of jeans that he had that had a huge hole in them, and he said he was going to get rid of them, and I said, oh wait, I want them, and it kind of changed my entire project for today. So let's glue these down, let this sit, and then we'll start working on those jeans. These are my husband's jeans, and he was showing me this morning the hole that was in them, and he says he has to get new ones, and I was like, ooh, give me those. I can use them. So they're going to be part of my DIYs this week. I'm cutting out the pockets. because instead of creating my own pocket, I figured this would be a great way to have a pocket already there. I might have to like shred this a little bit so it looks a little nicer. And the way I would do that, like the sides, I usually just take a, what is it, a sander, and I just like rub it against the sides, and that creates that more distressed look. It works with drop cloth. I use it with drop cloth a lot. And I was thinking that would look perfect on this piece we glued together. I found this piece of wood that had split from those two boards that we glued together. So I'm just going to take some Titebond and glue it on the inside, press it down and allow it to set so that it is fully adhered. I just don't want there to be any splinters or there to be any reason that this wood would break in any way. So that's my solution for today. The best part about Titebond Quick and Thick is that it does dry clear, and if I were to paint this, it is a paintable glue. Other wood glues can kind of stain through, and you'll see, I'll show you a project a little later in this video where that happened on a previous project I did and I had to repaint it. This is definitely a great option, especially for those little touch-ups that you have. All right, here is our scrap wood, and here's my jean pocket. Sometimes I've stapled it. In this case, I feel like with the hot glue, if I do the hot glue, I can actually go all the way across. The only thing I'm worried about is if the glue comes through onto this part. So I think I'm going to go around the whole thing first, and then I might come back and do some sort of glue here, but find a way to protect it so it doesn't get on the front part of the pocket. This is by far one of the best hot glue guns I've ever gotten. It is, as you can see, I don't know if you, I'm assuming you can see the steam coming off of it is phenomenal. I mean, it really is good with adhesion. Here is a 4x4 piece of scrap wood that we are going to turn into a riser. I'm going to start by painting it with 2 coats of Stormy Seas, which is a dark grayish blue chalk paint by Dixie Belle. Here is the inlay I'm going to use. This is the new 2025 release, I believe Spring Melody. And I'm going to cut some of these flowers off and use them sporadically around this block. Now, ultimately, this is going to stand this way. And I have an idea for the top. I guess it could be a candle holder. It's not kind of where I was going with this project. First things first, I'm going to take the one floral. I'm actually going to probably do, let's see, I'm going to cut out these two. I'm going to mist my 2 inlays to start while I begin painting my second coat. I am still working on learning how to do this with a polyacrylic sealer. So I'm doing a healthy coat of paint. You see that I'm kind of painting over to the side. I do want to have the flower go around the corner. I am using Dixie Belle's Stormy Seas chalk paint for this project. And the reason that I'm not putting too much of it on the front is because of what I'm going to embellish with later. So lay it down. And you do have a little bit of wiggle room in the very beginning of laying it down before the paint starts to set. Once I have it laid down, I'm going to take a cloth, a rag, and just kind of press that inlay into the paint. And then we're going to set it aside to dry. You see this part here, it's going to be a little wrinkly. I'm okay with that. It's not going to look perfect, but when you're working with scrap wood, when you're working with wood that's kind of, you know, not sanded perfectly, it's going to have that more rustic effect, and I'm okay with it having that rustic effect on the inlay as well. Once I get these two on, if after I peel them away I feel like it needs more, we can always come back and do more. I will say I have had the most success when I use this inlay with either Dixie Belle's chalk paint or DIY clay-based paint. I ended up painting a second one of those 4x4s, and I used the paint inlay from the, I believe it was the Lattice Rose paint inlay set from last year. And I originally thought this could be a set that could go together, but I don't think that the paint colors are as close as I originally anticipated. I forgot to get a reveal of the other one, but here's a reveal of this one. Now I'm going to be taking the Kindest Regards stamp set and some white ink, and I'm going to be stamping it in places around my inlay. Unlike stamps that have masks, a paint inlay does not. I don't know if I should have done this beforehand because I had to use the paint to do the inlay anyway, so I'm just being mindful and trying to stay away from where the paint inlays are, but get enough of it around so it looks very cohesive across the entire strip of wood. I grabbed another piece of scrap wood from that stash and Brad nailed it to the top to create the base of the riser. This is something I created a while ago, and as you can see, it needs to be refreshed. It is just 2 pieces of scrap wood, and then I had some wooden candlesticks that I got from Amazon, and I glued them to the tops and the bottoms on both and let it dry. And then I think I might have painted the candles ahead of time because I believe this is some of the wood glue that maybe came down. The other thing, and if you notice that I did, is that the candlesticks are in reverse on either side. So the base of the candlestick on this side is on the bottom, and then I flipped it and put this one on the bottom. I did this for 2 reasons. One, just for some like extra effect, I guess, just to make it look pretty. And then the other reason is because I wanted these two to be closer together. And if I had these 2 bases next to each other, it would not do that. I apologize, I don't have an actual video of this, but it gives you an idea of how you can recreate, and something that you could recreate very easily. I even have these little cylinders that I gotten in my scrap pile that could also be like a base. And I might show you that. I don't know if I'll get to it today, but I might show you that. I decided to paint this with 2 coats of chocolate, which is a fusion all-in-one mineral paint. And I wanted to give this piece a little bit more of a sophisticated look. So the entire piece is going to be painted with that color. And that's really all we're going to do to refresh this project. Just giving it new color gives it an entirely new style, kind of puts it in a different vibe. It was like more farmhouse, and now it's going to be a little bit more sophisticated and modern. I feel like shelf sitters are one of the easiest ways to get started with crafting or crafting with wood and scrap wood. When I got started, this was my way of becoming more comfortable with using wood, and I feel like you can make really beautiful things with just a piece of scrap wood, even if you're not somebody who is a woodworker or, has a lot of fancy tools. I got a big pack of scrap wood in various sizes off of Amazon, and it was a huge box for just maybe $30. So it's probably more than what you would pay if you just went to Home Depot or when you find scrap wood like for free. But this was something that was easiest for me to get started with because most of the pieces were already cut down to a size that would be perfect for a shelf sitter. Here's another moment in crafting where a happy accident has occurred, and you will see why in a little bit.
This is all part of the same Roycycled paper. It's either farm animals, baby farm animals. I will link it below. What I did was I just used an artist brush and I was able to kind of rip apart each of the animals. And I am doing this because I am trying to use it up, and I figured if I separate them all now, it'll be much easier for me to kind of figure out how to place them on different projects. And I think I'm going to be using most of them just on scrap wood. I kind of have a two-part goal here to use up as much of my scrap wood as possible. That little set I left together. And use up as much of my scrap wood as possible, and to try to use up as much of my supplies. One little bunny was ripped apart, probably from when I cut her off from a previous project, or I was using another part of that paper. I think I can probably get away with just, if I did a shelf sitter where this was off to the side with a quote, I feel like this will work. So I saved this one. There was one other one with a lamb, but the head was gone, so I didn't think that was going to work. All right, let's see if we can find some scrap wood to match each of these little baby animals.
I decided to do this project in an assembly line, so I will be making 10 different shelf sitters using various pieces of those pieces of decoupage paper and some other things. I'm starting by numbering each of the pieces of decoupage paper and each of the pieces of wood so I can remember which one should go with which. Then I used some budget-friendly white paint and painted the one side of each of those pieces of scrap wood. I'm using Snow by Waverly. I also painted the back of each of those little scraps of decoupage paper with some white paint as well. I did this because I wasn't sure at this point in the project how I was going to embellish each of the different shelf sitters. So some of them may end up, this might not even be needed, but I felt like it was easier to just do this because I am working in an assembly line rather than sitting there with each separate shelf sitter trying to decide what I was going to do. I then went to my kitchen, made some coffee, and I took these different quotes that I had created on Canva in different fonts, and I crinkled up that printed piece of paper and put it right into the coffee. I will tell you that this did not work well for me when I tried to pull up the piece of paper, so I did go back and use a different method to stain my paper instead. I laid a crinkled up piece of paper onto some paper towels and then very gently poured some of that coffee with a spoon onto the page. This is where the fun began and creativity flowed. I really just grabbed some stamps, grabbed some other things in my stash, and those little quotes that I had created with the coffee stained paper, and I found a way to embellish each of those little shelf sitters in a different way. This is the one where you saw that piece getting cut out, or that fell out of the shelf sitter. I decided to add this very moody donkey to this one, and I am going to be stamping a phrase on there instead. This ended up being a really relaxing and really fun project to do on a Saturday, but it was really fun finding a different kind of phrase to match the little pictures that I had in my stash. I started to think, could this be something that I could use to create for my website, but instead of selling them individually, I was thinking about maybe trying something new. So I decided on two things. So there are two wonderful things that you guys can take advantage of today. First, for anybody who is a booth owner or has a storefront, I do not. And so When things sell on my website, it's wonderful, but I also have a very large inventory in my house that I really can't keep up with. So I thought about selling little pieces like this in bulk. And that's what I have started on my website. So there is going to be a category in there called wholesale, and that's where I'm going to be taking pieces like this that I would typically sell anywhere from like $5 to $10, and I am going to be offering them in packs of 10 for a very, very reasonable cost. If you're not a booth owner and you want to order it anyway, that's fine. I just thought it might be something that somebody who maybe can't keep up with the inventory within their own storefronts or own booths, they could purchase this at a reasonable cost and then sell it for a profit. And that's fine with me. I win, you win, we win. I will also have a free digital download available on my website where you can download these quotes both in the regular format as well as in a reverse if you decide to do a reverse transfer method. I'll be showing you guys that in an upcoming video, but for today, I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and please let me know what was your favorite scrap wood project, and will you be trying anytime soon?